Welcome, everyone, to Together We Serve TV show. I really thank you for coming on, taking not a quick look, a 56-minute look of one of my guests, how they're serving a community by togetherness. Together We Serve. This TV show is very special to me. I've had cancer, skin cancer, nothing serious, but I've heard the C word. We're going to talk a lot about that today. It's all over, and my guest has dealt with it for a long time. But you know what's powerful about her is she's got a servant's heart. She's out there grateful she can help others with resources, her website, her team, and she can do wonderful things to help you or anybody you know that might have cancer and needs some help. So let's bring on our guest. Deb, welcome to the show.
Hello, hello. I am so honored to be here. We're going to have such a great discussion.
Well, Together We Serve is such a great name for cancer, meaning we can't go the cancer journey alone. Talk about how you help with that journey.
You know, that's one of the things that I hear the most is people say, I've never felt so alone in my life. And part of that is because we don't want to bother people. We don't want to seem like we're whining. You know, we don't want to complain. And so we isolate ourselves. And now is the time where we absolutely have to reach out to those who want to help us and support us, whether it's, you know, somebody just texting a message every once in a while or taking us to doctor's appointments, bringing meals, sending words of encouragement. Now is the time where we have to band together.
Communication sounds like a big part of this as well.
Yes. Yep.
The wrong communication could be really detrimental as well, right?
Right. Yeah. You know, and it's one of those things where people can't read our minds. You know, we like to think they can, but they can't. And so when we need help, when we need, you know, somebody to, you know, cry on their shoulder, whatever it is, we have to tell them. And so we can't feel bad when they don't offer.
This I get asked a lot, and it happens in mental health as well. You're learning about somebody's cancer, their journey. People don't know what to say.
Right.
What's some great communication you can say and saying, hey, you know, I was just diagnosed with lung cancer.
Right.
I don't know what's going to happen.
And you are so right. You know, people have absolutely no idea what to say. They don't want us to feel worse, right? They don't want to say the wrong thing. And so they don't say anything. And one of the first things that somebody should say is, I'm sorry. I am so sorry that you're going through that. We don't want to hear grandma had this and this is what she did. No, because we're different than grandma. You know, but we want to hear, I'm sorry. What we don't want to hear is tell us if there's anything we can do to help. Now, they mean well by saying that, but my brain is so befuddled by the fact that I have cancer and I'm having to deal with it that I can't think of anything to say I need. So be specific and say, can I bring you dinner on Thursday? Can I drive you to a doctor's appointment? Can I come and just sit with you? You know, be specific, because then our little befuddled brains can grasp that and deal with that, you know, and so, but don't ignore them. You know, that is one of the things that people do is they think, well, I'm just not going to say anything because I don't want them to feel bad. Well, then what happens is we think they don't love us, right? You know, and so it's so important. I'm sorry you're going through this. Goes an awful long way. Or I had people who said, you know, we didn't know what to say. And I told them Hallmark has cards. You know, and I still have all of those cards that people sent to me, you know, and some of them were very serious cards. There were a lot that were just really funny. But there are cards basically to say, I'm thinking of you. And that's what we want. We want to know, again, that we're not alone.
And there's somebody there to support you, not telling you what to do, but and I love, so it sounds like, and this is great learning for me as well. That's why I love hosting these. So yes and no questions. Hey, do you need a ride to the doctor next week? Can I bring you dinner? Can can I come over and watch a movie with, I love that because it's less thinking.
Right.
It's like, yes or no. No, not today, but maybe next. Yes, come on over at 8:00.
Right.
That's a powerful.
The easier you can make it, because we do have so much going on through our brains. And to make it worse, we might have chemo brain or, all those various other things. And so you make it simple for us. And that makes it simple for you too. If you're thinking, well, I can take them dinner, but I don't know when, I don't know what they like. Then you don't ask again, right?
Yeah. And it sounds like we'll stick with the cancer thing because this is about, but that works across the board. Somebody broke their leg. They lost a loved one, whoever
lost
it is.
Lost a job, right? Got divorced. A grief. Grief is a big thing. Maybe they lost a loved one.
Talk about grief, and anybody that's dealing with cancer or has a family member or a friend with cancer. How do you handle grief?
I had a revelation yesterday when I was listening to somebody else's podcast, and she was talking about grief from the standpoint of actually losing a loved one. And she said, yes, people can say, hey, we're going through something similar, but losing a loved one is obviously, there's nothing that compares to that. But when we have cancer, it is in a lot of ways like it's dealing with someone who has dealing with the grief symptoms. We're angry. We're in denial. We're bargaining, right? You make me better, God, and I'll be the better person. All of these various things. And of course, like any type of grief, it comes and it goes. We can be just fine for days, weeks, even years. And then it'll hit again. And you'll think, why did I have to go through this? What did I do to cause this? All those various things that we deal with if we're actually dealing with the stages of grief. And it is very normal for people to feel those. And the thing to do is to acknowledge that it's very normal, get through it, and then go on.
I get through is such a powerful servant heart message because that's the hope. We want to leave people with hope. I didn't want to start the show with this because your journey has been incredible. Because
it's been a roller coaster.
And audience, when you hear the story, you're going to see she's laughing and she's happy and she means it. But a lot of people wouldn't be with what she's been through. Go through the journey of your cancer and what's happening where you are today.
So it is rather complicated, and so I'll try and boil it down a little bit. So in 2015, I went for my annual checkup and had my mammogram, just like you're supposed to do. I was not even home, I think, when they called and said, you need to come back. Now, in my background, I worked for an oncologist and I worked for the American Cancer Society. So I know just enough to be dangerous. And being called back, I knew was not good. It was not, I didn't smile pretty for my pictures, right? It was, there's something that is there. So I went back, did another mammogram. Turns out what I had was something called microcalcifications. Not a lump, not a bump, not anything that was easy to diagnose. And so what do? I'm like, I don't know what a microcalcification is. So I go to Dr. Google. That's what we all do, right? And according to Dr. Google, most women of a certain age get microcalcifications. It happens when the hormones in our bodies change as we age. The vast majority of time, it's not an issue, because like I said, you get those. But in some people, because I have to be special, they start coalescing and gathering together. And then that's where there is the problem. And so, but they had diagnosed me as stage 0. Let's not really get too concerned about this. I did have a surgeon that I talked with. She did a couple biopsies that came back negative. And then she said, and, so this was not a rushed process. This went over the course of several months. And she finally said, let's go ahead and pull some lymph nodes. And everything was on the left side. So she said, let's pull some lymph nodes. Nobody was more surprised than she was when 8 of 12 lymph nodes came back positive for cancer. So that meant that I went from stage 0 to stage 3, just kapoof, right? And I didn't even have an oncologist. So, I had to scurry around, get an oncologist, met with her. And she said, we need to be very aggressive with this. Now, I chose the traditional treatment route. Many other people choose something different. It's very, very important that you choose what you feel is best for you. But I chose traditional. So I was going to do chemo, surgery, radiation. So, I have my chemo treatment, and it was 8 different drugs because we were having to hit this pretty hard. It took about 9 hours to do the entire treatment. It was Halloween weekend. I go home, have trick-or-treaters. This is great fun. And then I started feeling kind of puny. But I thought, well, I did have massive chemo. But then I went from puny to something's really wrong. Called the doctor, and they said, you need to get in to see us. Before we could do that, we realized, no, this was go to the hospital. So, call the fire department, call the ambulance, and they're carting me off to the hospital. Now, I am chatty Cathy all the time. I mean, that's just me. And so I'm in the ambulance, and now we live about 5 minutes from the hospital, especially by ambulance. And we stopped partway. And I said, what the heck? What's going on? And, and he said, well, it's a stoplight. I said, well, we're not going lights and sirens. I'm special, right? And that's the last thing I remember for hours, because then I got to go lights and sirens because my whole world crashed. And what happened was I got a complication that happens less than 1% of the time. My doctor had someone who had passed away from the same complication, and so she knew what to do. What happened was I went into septic shock, and septic shock is very bad. The stats are about 75% of the time it's fatal. So you have a massive infection throughout your body that starts attacking your organs. My heart rate went up to about 200. I felt like I was going to fly away. And it ended up very severely damaging my kidneys for the rest of my life. But had emergency surgery. But I remember the oncologist and the surgeon arguing in the hall about how fast I was going to die that day. The surgeon didn't even want to try. And the oncologist got in his face and said, you're going to try. Obviously he did. And so I ended up in the hospital for about 7 weeks, multiple complications, multiple other surgeries, all sorts of things that went on. Finally was able to go home and was getting better. And then, was like, okay, well, can't do chemo. And so let's go ahead and do the mastectomy. And I had decided to have a double mastectomy without reconstructive surgery. Again, that was my choice. A lot of people make very different choices, but I got a complication from that my surgeon had never seen, right? Because I'm special. And so, that was only an overnight type of thing in the hospital. Then things got, much better. And now I worked a good portion of this time. And I think that was very important for me because it gave me something to focus on. I do own my own company. And so I was able, I tell people hospitals have really good Wi-Fi, and so I was able to work, went through radiation and sailed through radiation, had absolutely no complications, nothing, which was a little surprising considering the fact that I am a natural redhead that freckles and burns very easily. And so, we were kind of surprised that I didn't have any issues. Then, just kept kind of going. And, there were other things that I was having to deal with along the way, predominantly because of the septic shock. Because I was not able to continue with chemo, I take a treatment so my official diagnosis became stage 4 triple positive metastatic breast cancer. Stage 4 is not considered in most cases to be curable. Now, it might never come back, but it is something that is just kind of always that shadow that is always there. And the stage 4 diagnosis came because I had an issue with a rib on that same side, and the tests on it came back as inconclusive. So the decision was made, let's just say stage 4 and not mess with this. So I continue my treatment. I actually still am in treatment. I have a port in my shoulder. I get an infusion every 21 days, slows me down for a day or two, and then away I go. But in amongst all of this, I also mentioned to my doctor, hey, I got this thing on my arm that won't heal. off I go to the dermatologist. Now, he took one look at it and diagnosed basal cell carcinoma, which is actually very easy to treat. He zapped it. I didn't even have a stitch, so that was really nice. He just burned that. And then last year I did the same thing. I said, hey, I've got this thing going on. They did a CAT scan. That did not show anything for that, but it showed that I had thyroid cancer. So last summer, and it's been just a little over a year ago, I had to have my thyroid removed. And there were actually 2 tumors that were there, but we still caught it so early that it had not spread, and I did not have to have any further treatment. But, it is kind of this ongoing thing. A couple weeks ago, I had my 34th surgical procedure. But you just keep going, because that's really the only choice. Now you can choose to say, I've had enough. And some days I'm thinking that, right? But then I kick myself where I need to be kicked, and away I go. But my choice has been to just keep going and keep fighting.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned you have bad days, because every time I've met you, it's a couple times. You have this wonderful, jovial, happy attitude. And as well as others that don't have the attitude when they have cancer. When I got that 2011, diagnosis, and it was basal carcinoma. I had the exact same thing you
did. But it still scares the crap out of you.
Yeah, the C word, called my best friend, Mike Sullivan. Shout out to him, love him. He's pharmaceuticals. He walked me through.
You have frozen. I don't know if we're still going. We might be live. We might not be live. I don't know what's going on, folks. Gotta love technology. We're just going to figure this out as we go. Oh, now it's just me. Such fun. Isn't it fun that I can sit here and talk to myself? So I am going to talk to myself. When you are diagnosed with cancer, it truly is absolutely, totally life altering. And the thing is, we have to deal with it in the way that feels best for us. Not the doctors, not our loved ones, no one. We have to deal with cancer in the way, and whatever the diagnosis is, might not be cancer, might be something else, but we have to pick what works for us. And that is what is so important, because, for some people, that's going to be a non-traditional approach. Some people are going to say no chemo. Some are going to say no surgery. I have a friend who went to a foreign country and had her treatment, and that was what she felt would be best for her. And so that was what was so lovely about it. Look, you're back. I've been just carrying on a conversation with myself.
That's what I love this lady. Thank you. Technical difficulties. I'm like.
And so I've just been talking.
I knew you were. I was in good hands with you as a guest.
I had that happen one time on my podcast. I dropped off and my guest just kept going.
That's what we do. Just they'll come back eventually. I wanted to talk about, and I had my story and I mentioned that, but cancer's, I hate to say it's everywhere. It seems like it is.
It's about 1 and 2. Yeah.
Is it 1 and 2 now? Holy moly. How important is the right doctor?
The right doctor is absolutely positively critical. It dawned on me the other day, that I have fired about 8 doctors through this process. Now, they were all competent, good doctors, but we didn't hit it off. And so it was one of those things. Now, you don't always have to like your doctor, but you have to trust them, especially when you're dealing with something like this. And there were several where it was just, no, I am not getting along with you. And so I would change doctors. They didn't like that. It was, something, but I had to pick who was going to be the best for me, because we have to be in charge of our treatment. Nobody else is in charge of our treatment. That was what I was talking to myself about as we were going. But it is so important to absolutely have a team of medical people, people who are providing support. Might be your yoga instructor, might be somebody doing Reiki, whatever it is. We have to have the people around us who are best going to support us and do what we need them to be doing.
That's it's just so well said. And again, I keep going back to this. You got to understand, listen how happy she is. She has every right to be upset.
And I get cranky.
Depressed.
Just ask my husband.
Of course you do. And we're human, we're failed. But you've dealt with so many years and dealing with now still today. It's not like you're completely clear. I just love you about that. But I also love when I'm putting across this message of the ticker is the Bear Hug Care Package. I was looking at them.
Isn't this just the cutest? Now, the bear's name is Warrior because we are warriors. But this is, I love my bear hugs. They're just, and what we've got, and we do have, it's going on the ticker. We do have the opportunity for people, if you do 10 special as a coupon, that will give you 10% off. But this is, it's a care package where we've got Warrior, and then we have several other items in it. We've got some temporary inspirational tattoos. I have the real ones, but some people want temporary ones. Some lip balm that is unflavored, unscented, because when you're in chemo, some of that does nasty stuff to you. Several other things. But the idea is that you would send Warrior to someone else who is on their journey with cancer so that they know they're not alone. And that's the thing that is so important about this. So we're sending a bear hug, right? I sent one last week to Germany. Hasn't gotten there yet, but and so yeah, it's and I had several little stuffed animals when I was in the hospital that friends sent, and I always knew that I was not alone. And so that was kind of the concept of, hey, we're going to do this bear hug, and this is just like the cutest darn bear in the world.
So awesome. And what I'm thinking as you were talking about this, people are getting a lot of cards. Like you mentioned, you got a lot of cards, and they're great. Now you could do something a little different or add to the card if you want. Is send this bear instead of, what do I do? Send a bear. Now your love is with that person. That hug is with them when they have a downtime. A part of you is there. And they access it to the website?
Yes. And so you go to tryingnottodie.LIVE. And, and there are the links there. You've got it on the ticker, but if you go to tryingnottodie.live, you can find the Bear Hug Care Package as a link.
Why Bear Hug?
Well, when we were thinking about it, it was, what critter would you do? Well, everybody had a teddy bear, right? When we were growing up. And, and so we found this bear. It's not perfect. I mean, his little ear is kind of off and they're all like this. I mean, it's not just the little ear's not quite where the ear's supposed to be and all sorts of things, but we're not perfect, right? And it really is. It's just the cutest little bear in the world. Of course, it has the little t-shirt on that has our logo, which is a warrior who has put, it happens to be a her, but it can be, for men also, sword in the sand in front. She is kneeling, but the sword is down to say, I'm drawing the line here. And she is looking forward. She is not looking down. She is not in any way subservient. She is saying, I am taking my stand here. And I tell people, I'm not a patient. I am a warrior. I am a warrior in the fight for my life. And we've talked about togetherness and everything. It is so important that we build our tribe because warriors can't do this alone. We have to have our tribe.
Yeah, unless they're a Marvel character like Thor, but
I
we're
know.
not. So we
But Thor
need.
had a
So
hammer.
there
Yeah.
you go. That see, I knew you'd figure that out.
Mhm,
And talk a little bit before we go to our break. Community and reaching out. I've got
mhm,
cancer.
mhm,
How important going out to that community is for me to walk
mhm,
through this journey.
mhm. Having your community is just absolutely critical. What I always think about is whenever I'm going in for something, my 34th surgery, doctor's appointment, whatever it is, I am surrounded by this bubble of well wishes, prayers, whatever it is that people are sending. And I very distinctly remember at one point where things weren't going quite as well as they could have been going. And I remember thinking, well, I can't die. All those people will be annoyed. But it is so important. And it's funny because it is comprised of people who I've never met. They've just somehow, gotten into my circle. A lot of people, obviously, who I know, people who I thought would be my biggest supporters haven't always been there. People who I didn't even know knew I existed have been some of my biggest supporters. So you never know in this process who is going to be your community, but it is important that they're the right community. If they're going to be the gloom and doomy, or the people who you just don't want in your community, it's okay to lovingly send them on their way.
Lovingly is the key word there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the important thing. And
Mm-hmm.
I think love is a big part of this too.
Yes.
Love on these people. And
Mm-hmm.
that's it. That's the best
Mm-hmm.
way you can really handle
Right.
this.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. Last word about cancer and why you're fighting it so hard.
I'm not done. I have no idea where this came from. In my mind is a picture of me at 97. Again, I have no idea why. I mean, I had other relatives, especially female relatives, who lived well into their 90s, so that's not anything unusual. But yeah, I see myself at 97. Like I said, I have no idea why. I have no idea where that came from. But I'm not done. I have things I want to do. And some of them are, easy things. I want to go to the Olympics in Los Angeles. Oh my gosh, that's on my bucket list. The thing I put on my bucket list yesterday that I told my husband, and he's like, really? I want to do a cruise to the Antarctic. Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be so much fun? But, some of it is there's a movie that I want to see, or a garden I want to go to, or friends that I want to have a meal with, or get to know on their podcast and their TV program. So I'm just not done.
And I love the hope you give yourself. Bucket lists are so powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And you get the naysayers like, well, take every day.
Mm-hmm.
Take it day by day.
Right.
And it's okay message.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing that. You got your support.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nothing that says you can't do that. Hey, let's plan an Antarctica trip next June of 2025.
Yeah. And the thing with bucket lists is don't think in 20 years I want to do. That's okay. But why not move that timetable up? And sometimes you can't, you might say, hey, on my bucket list is an around the world cruise. That might just not be doable. Okay. Go to the museum. Read books, do all sorts of other things that can bring you some of those experiences.
Okay, let's take a break because this is just amazing. The tidbits you've given us, people with cancer, people helping people with cancer, so much you could do. I want her to take a break. She's been talking a lot. We'll come right back in about 5-6 minutes and continue this great conversation with the wonderful Deb.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly. And I called
Mm-hmm.
my best friend, and he was a pharmacist. He calmed me down. He goes, just let's walk through it,
Mm-hmm.
do their thing, and it turned out to be
Mm-hmm.
okay. What's your thought when people hear that C word?
I think your immediate reaction is a true visceral gut reaction. The oh, say bad words here, right? And because we all know somebody who has had cancer, many people obviously have been, as blessed as you are, but there are also so many that we've lost. It really is about taking charge and being your own advocate, empowering yourself. And so it is about empowering ourselves. And whatever decision you make, you need to make it with knowledge. I mean, you can't just say, no, I'm not going to do this, or okay, I'll do whatever. Now, I chose a very traditional approach. I mentioned chemo, and then I did have surgery. I had a double mastectomy. It's been a very interesting journey, one that you hope nobody ever goes through. But how can we help those who do?
Well, that was a tidbit of my podcast with Deb, and a couple of things I wanted to show that is one, still the same attitude as today as a couple, 3 weeks ago. Her voice, her attitude, her body language is of hope, of faith, of winning. And I think that's, in cancer, I know that's tough, but she's proven that you can do that. It's one of the reasons I really wanted her on this show is just showing you can. And we're going to talk about advocacy and an advocate because I think that's an important term. Let's bring the wonderful Deb Krier back to the show. Welcome back, Deb. She's
I'm
nourished.
back.
She's happy.
I'm
She's
back. I got up. I
smiling.
stretched. I did some calisthenics. I'm ready to
Oh,
go.
that's my girl. I love it. Advocacy, being an advocate.
Mm-hmm.
For the audience, what's that mean and how does that look with cancer?
Right. We absolutely, and we have touched on it, and it was in that clip. You have to advocate for yourself. This is what I want. This is how I will be treated. All of those various things. And the other thing that's very important is sometimes you can't advocate for yourself. I mean, I was in and out of ICU, all sorts of icky nasties. And so my husband was my advocate. So you need to have someone who knows what your wishes are. But more importantly, how can you advocate for someone else? I've gone with people to their initial doctor's appointments. I've, walked them through. These are some things that you should be asking. How can we advocate for others to get what they deserve as their treatment? And it is so important to be that person in charge, to be that warrior, right?
Yeah. What would we look for an advocate? Somebody is listening,
Mm-hmm.
watching, they just got a cancer. I love that idea, Deb.
Right.
What's my next steps to find one?
I tell people that first doctor's appointment where you're going in and they're telling you your chances are X. Here's what we're going to do. And, and your brain shut off, right? Because it's still going, oh my God, I have cancer. You need somebody who can go with you to that first appointment. Now, mine was my husband, but you might have somebody else. And like I said, I've gone with several people. They're going to be the people who have taken, questions. They know the questions in advance that you want to make sure get answered. They're going to take notes, and they're going to make sure that those questions get answered before you leave. One of the things that I love about my oncologists, now they are a big practice here in Atlanta. I don't know how many offices they have or how many doctors and other staff they have, but they are big. But on the door in every single room where you are seen by a doctor, there is a sign, and it says, "Do not leave this room unless all of your questions have been answered." And that is so important because, now I've called them back in. Yeah, but what, right? But, we have all these questions. Ask those questions. Don't think that the doctor can read your mind, and that's where, we said the title of the program is fine as a 4-letter word, right? When the doctor says, so Deb, how are you doing today? Do not say fine. Right? Because they can't read minds either. Make sure that you ask those questions. Some of those questions are going to be really hard. How long do I have? How sick am I going to be? What's, when I have this surgery, how long is it going to be before I can get back to normal life? All of those various things, and that's where it is that you're advocating, but we are never, ever supposed to just say, fine. When they ask me how I'm doing, I say, I'm hunky dory. And they know if I don't say hunky dory, that there's a problem, right? And, and if somebody, if I say, so Steve, how you doing? Now, casual conversation, passing somebody in the elevator, whatever, how you doing? Fine. That's okay. But when they're going through something like this, if I say, Steve, how are you doing? And if you say, fine, dig a little deeper. Really? Are you sure? Is there something I can be doing to help? Because fine is kind of that nasty word. I mean, it is a 4-letter word. We don't want to be fine. We might be fantastic, or we might be those other F words, right? But, don't say that you're just fine. But yeah, be honest. I'm not doing good today, or I am doing absolutely fantastic.
What I'm hearing is pretty powerful, and I'm glad you answered the question, because I was wondering, why is fine a 4-letter word?
Mm-hmm.
I thank you, because it's very understandable. So what I'm hearing, one, an advocate being there listening, because you're going through all this in your head, you miss stuff.
Yeah, and you're thinking, I'm going to die, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. That's what is going through your brain. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I thought that too, and then realized it was not as big, but still I went through that.
It is a big deal. Cancer is a big deal. Mm-hmm.
But you ask questions, especially the right questions, that could save your life.
Right. Mm-hmm. And you might be saying, I don't want to do all of that. I mentioned the fact that years ago I worked for an oncologist. Wonderful, delightful man. I learned so much from him, and it's been probably about 35 years. I discovered that he recently passed away, and it made me very sad. But one of the things that he always said was 99% of what we're dealing with is in our head. If we believe this will come out okay, then it will. If we think I'm going to die, then it will. And we had patients who literally told him, now I have no medical training. I was his office staff. But we had patients who said, I'm not going to do that. And as long as they were comfortable with that decision, then his next words were, what can I do? And I remember we had one lady who said she was going to take that money that she would have spent on all of her treatment. She was going to go on an around the world cruise. And, and so we actually made copies of her medical record, because if you pass away in some foreign countries, it's a little bit of a challenge for your family to get your body back, right? And so having those medical records would make that so much easier. Now, we got postcards from her for quite a while, and then they stopped. And we chose to believe that she had found an island and was just hanging out on that island, right? But it was all about what decision was she comfortable with making for herself.
Now, I'm curious, and the audience might be curious too. Did you ever find out what happened to her?
No, we never did.
And
it was probably, I mean, we were realistic, and so we knew that it was probably not good, but we didn't want to go there. She was an older woman, and this was 35 years ago, so she probably has passed. But, maybe she just got tired of sending us postcards. Maybe she found Guido in Italy, and, who knows, right? And it was one of those things. But yeah, Dr. Rabinowitz was his name. Dr. Rabinowitz said, you know what? You need to do what you need to do. And 35 years ago, doctors didn't say that.
No, they pushed all the treatments on them. And that's another great lesson and tip. It's your body.
Yes.
It's your life.
Yeah. I mean, I have, there was another woman who I know, who was diagnosed with breast cancer at pretty much the same time I was. And she told me, she said, I'm not doing it. Now, she did have surgery to remove the tumor, but then she said, I am not going to have chemotherapy. And I said, okay. Now, her cancer came back, and she was talking to me, and she said, what do you think I should do? And I said, well, what do you think? And she said, I think chemo will kill me. I said, well, then you can't have chemo. I mean, and she has chosen a much more non-traditional route. She's still alive, so this has been 8-ish years for her also. But she made the choice that she was the most comfortable with. And that was what was the most important thing.
I think what I've heard stories too, that's a big problem with cancer and pretty much any medical diagnosis is all these people coming from the woodwork. You need to do this. You need to eat fruit. You need to, drink beer. And I love holistic.
I have beer.
Yeah, you can go have a beer on me. I'm buying it for you. I love it. But that's what comes to my head is there's so much coming, especially now. 20 years made me so much.
Oh, yeah. If you Google cancer, your computer goes.
Yeah. I love that you can laugh about this. It's so great. So that it's good to do the research, but ultimately it's the person with cancer or leukemia, whatever, ALS, whatever they have, if they can make that decision.
Yeah. And you do get inundated with people who are giving you advice, whether it's this is what happened with grandma, or, hey, I just saw this great program on, the Discovery Channel or whatever.
Yeah.
And I always treat it with the spirit that they intended it, which was to be helpful. Now, I might be rolling my eyes and thinking, oh, no, but they meant it in a good way. And so that's how I take it. There's only been one person who was pushing me on something. And they were going to cure me. They were going to sell me something, of course, that cured me. And I very politely declined. And they kept pushing and they kept pushing. And I finally said, no offense, but if you had the cure for cancer, you're not selling it out of the trunk of your car. Didn't hear from them again. But most people do mean well, whether it's, go on a green tea diet, or one person told me never drink tap water again. They all mean well. And so take it that way. You just don't have to actually do it.
Yeah. And you're vulnerable too when you have this emotional state of I might be dying.
If somebody says, hey, we can make this better, you are thinking, okie dokie.
It's like in business, shiny object syndrome. Hey, I got this great software. I'll jump on $100,000 and we can go on and on. You're such a beautiful soul. God bless you.
Well, thank you.
Your website's crazy to me. And I mean that it is crazy in such a good way. Trying not to die. .live.
Right.
Which is unique how you use the acronym. I got to know, I'm sure the other guy know, why is that title? I understand it, but why'd you pick that title?
So initially, it came because of my mother. Now, I am an only child. And when my husband made the call to her to say, I'm not sure she's going to get through the night, she lived in Kansas. And of course, she came dashing out as fast as she could. And she actually stayed for 4.5 months to help me. Now, it was a little long, and we finally, Mom, you got to go home. But one of the times when, I was in the hospital and, a medical person came in and did what they were doing and left, I got the disapproving mother face. And I went, what? And she said, you did not say thank you. And I said, oh, for God's sakes, Mom, I'm trying to not die here. But then when we were thinking about this, and my business coach, Kathleen Caldwell, was who convinced me to do this. She told me, she said, you didn't go through everything that you went through without using it to help others. And she had to twist my arm because I didn't want to be cancer girl. But I did realize what she said was true. And so we came up with Trying Not to Die, because we do get so wrapped up in trying to not die. Maybe it's just everyday life, right? That we forget that we have to live. And now I am a marketing person by trade. That is what pays my bills. And so I went to to GoDaddy. tryingnottodie.com was taken. How rude. How could they, right? Discovered that it was owned by a college student in another country. Made them an offer. And I thought it was pretty generous. And their response was they wanted $5,000 US dollars. They were very specific about that. So, and I told him, I said, no, this is just something that I'm kicking around in my head. And so I go back to GoDaddy, and GoDaddy suggested .live. And I went, well, duh. Right. And I worked with Josh Zeppes on this brand design, all of our messaging, and he is the one who came up with it being an acronym. And it's absolutely perfect because we do get so caught up in trying to not die that we forget that the most important thing is that we live.
Yeah, now that's I didn't know the story because we didn't talk about it in the podcast, and
No.
it's catchy, and
Mm-hmm.
it's hard to say trying not to die. It's a serious
Mm-hmm.
subject, but I love that you bring humor and laughter to it because the opposite is terrible:
Mm-hmm.
depression,
Well,
sadness, and
and I tell people, you know what? I woke up today and I wasn't looking up at 6 feet of dirt. So it's a pretty good day.
amen. Yeah, my dad used to say, "Hey, Dad, how you doing today?" He goes, "Woke up vertical."
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm like, and once I realized, I'm like, friends would tease him and stuff, but he was right. We'll go vertically. I can walk to the kitchen and have breakfast.
Yep.
Well, we're coming to the end here. This is the fastest 56 minutes of my
I
whole
know.
life.
Oh my gosh.
Isn't
Mm-hmm.
that crazy? So I got a fun question for you, and I
Okay.
think you're going to love this. So I just reserved a Learjet for you.
Mm-hmm.
It's got 4 seats.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you're going to occupy one of the seats.
Mm-hmm.
Who are the other 3 seats of the Learjet,
Mm-hmm.
and where would you fly to?
Well,
For
one has to be
meet
my
cute?
husband. Just
Yeah.
because could not have made it through without that. We celebrated our 31st wedding anniversary a couple weeks ago.
Amen.
So
Congratulations.
and so he would be one seat. Let's see, who would it be? Um, can they be? Can we bring people back to life?
Dead or alive. You can bring them right
Okay,
back up.
okay. Lucille Ball. Wouldn't she be a hoot? Get
Oh
us
my
two
gosh.
redheads together. Oh my gosh, that
Ah,
would just be absolutely amazing. Um, and then, you know, I think somebody like Shaquille O'Neal. He just fascinates me.
I'm
Um,
with
you
you.
know,
Oh,
I think he would be so much fun. Can you imagine? But now my husband would be going, "Ugh, oh my God, the whole time, right?
what
But
are you doing,
it would be
Joey?
so much fun. And where would we go? I don't know. If I could pick the time, I'd go to New Orleans during Mardi Gras. Have never done something like that. Um, I just saw a lot of Paris over the Olympics. Don't need to do that. I loved Italy. Would go back to Italy. I also loved Scotland and Ireland when we were there. But on my bucket list is also Australia. So I might take that Learjet and go to Australia.
And you're trying not to die.live. You can choose all of those places
This
because you
is
know what?
true.
You're living and you're doing
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
And I better order a big plane because you got Shaquille on there. He's got to
We
fit in the
got. Yeah, I
plane.
know. We need the extra
Yeah, big
tall.
one.
Hmm. Hmm.
Got 1 minute left. What do you
Yes.
want to leave us with?
You are in charge. You are in charge of whatever this journey is. You need to make sure that you are living every single moment. And remember that life is truly the only thing that can defeat cancer.
Love it. See you all next week. I've got Bodie Aldridge from Australia. Love you, Deb. Thank you so much. From Australia, matter of fact, who will be our international call next week. He's going to talk about leadership and international stuff. And Deb, I got to thank you. Again, you're an angel. God bless you. God has blessed me to be in your presence and
Thank
be
you. And
connected
I
with
feel the
you.
same. I feel the
God.
same. This is so much fun and getting to know you is just such a treat.
Amen. All right. We'll see you all next week, Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern.